Hello, I'm Gerald Whitburn, president of Church Mutual Insurance Company. The video you're about to see deals with a sensitive subject that has affected far too many religious organizations all across the United States, that of child sexual abuse. Over the years, Church Mutual has handled thousands of these cases. Every incident is tragic, but it's even worse when the abuse could have been prevented by implementing some simple policies and procedures. One procedure that I want to emphasize is conducting background checks on your employees and volunteers. It might be a little uncomfortable to ask a volunteer for permission to screen them, especially if it's a longtime member of your congregation. But if one instance of abuse can be prevented, it'll certainly be worth it. I want to thank you for the concern that you've shown and encourage you to share this video with the members of your congregation, especially those in leadership positions and those involved in your youth activities.
A man in his 20s accuses a long-standing pastor of repeated sexual assaults during counseling sessions when he was 11 to 14 years old. A volunteer at a Sunday school is accused of inappropriate touching and fondling by first one, then a score of children over a number of years. A deacon and community leader is arrested for allegedly showing pornography to young boys on a weekend campout.
Incidents of child sexual abuse happen in worship centers of all sizes, all denominations, in all areas of the country. A reported case has a profound impact on a worship center and its members. A congregation can face bitter divisions. New people are warned away from that place.
An allegation, trial, and criminal conviction can lead to huge financial settlements against a worship center and its board members. Today, ministries are no longer protected by charitable immunity. Courts view them like any other business or enterprise. I'm Joy Melton. As an attorney, I've represented numerous religious organizations in cases involving the sexual abuse of children. Lawsuits, usually filed by a child's parents against the church, can claim negligence for hiring a convicted offender, or negligence in supervising the offender, or failing to react to a report in a competent manner. Legal defense in these cases can be extremely costly and prolonged, whether the suit is successfully defended or not. And when any of the allegations are proven, judgments have sometimes been huge.
Worship centers are especially vulnerable to sexual predators. Yours is a faith-based organization. You want to trust people. Serial sexual abusers depend on that. You rely on volunteers, so much so that you may be uncomfortable asking questions that are intrusive and could be embarrassing. Sexual offenders know how to play that. And worship centers are about the last social institutions to react to the threat of sexual predators. Where else can they go to have access to children in an atmosphere of blind trust?
How do you protect your ministry, and more importantly, your children, from the threat of child sexual abuse? In the next 10 minutes, we're going to cover this topic from two perspectives: how to help prevent it from happening at your worship center, and what to do if it does happen.
First, I think it's important to define what child sexual abuse is. It includes any contact or interaction between a child and an adult in which the child is used for the sexual stimulation of the adult or another person. The exact definition varies by state. There are two types of offenses, touching and non-touching, like using inappropriate language, showing pornographic images to children, or displaying or asking children to watch sexual acts. Child molesters are professionals at what they do. They often deliberately set up a double life, a public life full of good works and appropriate behavior, and a private life filled with molesting. They count on people believing that a person who is responsible and kind in public couldn't possibly be a child molester. Unfortunately, you can't predict private behavior based on public behavior. There is no foolproof deterrent, but there are two areas you can probably improve on to help prevent an occurrence at your worship center: your hiring and screening practices and your supervision of children and adults in activities.
In a mid-sized community, a very pleasant man was charged with enticing children at a worship center for indecent purposes and child molestation. He had volunteered as a youth worker before at 3 different worship centers in 3 different communities.
The importance of effective screening cannot be overstated. It is not unusual for an individual who's been terminated at one worship center or school to seek employment at another. Here are 6 screening guidelines. They should be used for both your employees and volunteers.
First, all your applicants should complete an application. Questions to cover include current and previous residence addresses, current and previous employment with addresses, dates, duties, titles, and reasons for leaving, names and addresses of schools and degrees, references from employers and organizations serving children, and, where it's not prohibited by state law, any pending criminal charges. Second, during your initial interview of an applicant, have an associate participate if possible. Get a second impression. Review all the statements on the application. Pursue gaps you may notice, such as gaps between employment or a reluctance to name a reference. Third, contact all references and employers. Keep their responses in the interview file. Follow up with a written request if you don't get a telephone response. Then prepare a written summary of those comments. If responses were only dates of employment, note it. Fourth, have a follow-up interview. If there are discrepancies, discuss them with your applicant. If you feel you want to hire an applicant despite detrimental information, record your reasons why. Fifth, do a background check on key applicants, both employees and volunteers, especially if they'll be working with children. Recommended screens include Social Security verification, a national criminal search, a state criminal search, a county criminal search, and a sexual offender search. If you need assistance, contact your insurance agent for recommendations on companies offering background screening services. Finally, when you offer a position, ask for a complete set of fingerprints. People with criminal records may refuse. Yes, it is uncomfortable to ask, but fingerprinting is commonly required for people entrusted with large sums of money. Certainly, the value you place on your children's safety is greater. Make sure you consult with an attorney in your area who can advise you of state laws regarding criteria that can and can't be used in the selection process.
In a suburban community, a congregation member was convicted of the sexual abuse of a young girl. He would routinely give her a ride home after choir practice and routinely molest her.
Establishing firm supervisory guidelines, along with the facilities and operational practices it takes to put those guidelines to use, is essential to effective prevention. First, look at the physical structure of your activity areas. Here are some ways they might be improved.
Install windows in interior walls of classrooms and make it a policy to keep doors open. Always require that activities be conducted in an open area or room, not in a private office. Periodically, inspect classrooms, offices, workplaces, and other areas where children and adults are together. Also, check bathrooms, closets, and areas where sexual abuse might occur.
Now, let's establish some operational guidelines to follow. The first one I would suggest is the 6-month hospitality rule. Require that all volunteers be members of your congregation for at least 6 months prior to being given a position of trust with children. Here are some more guidelines.
Always require that any activity involving children be supervised by a minimum of 2 adults, especially field trips and related activities. Preferably, the 2 adults are not a husband and wife. Pay special attention to adults who spend considerable off-duty time with the same child or children. Encourage employees and volunteers to limit their physical contact with children. Designate a confidential advisor that a child can go to at any time without special permission to discuss any problems they might be having. Establish abuse prevention training for employees and volunteers. Make sure they know what sexual abuse is. Define it for them with clear directions on how to report suspicions. Let them know that good faith reporting will be kept protected and confidential. Establish a written standard of conduct for adult-child relationships designed to protect your children, but also to protect volunteers and workers against false allegations of abuse. It should include guidelines of conduct and contact during and after working hours, and guidelines for the transportation of children. Communicate this standard to your staff and all members of your congregation, especially parents.
How well you are prepared for an allegation of sexual abuse can be crucial, so I urge you to learn how to react. Your legal obligations will vary from state to state, so learn what constitutes sexual abuse in your area, who must file a report, and how to file it. I'd also urge you to take any reported incident seriously. Don't minimize it. Don't deny it. Don't try to explain it away. Most child accusations are true.
If an incident is reported, notify the authorities immediately. And don't wait for investigations and charges before notifying your liability insurance company. They might want to take statements and begin their investigation immediately. And you might need the advice an insurance company specializing in the religious market can give you. Inform the accused and discuss it with them. If they are an employee, suspend them with pay while a confidential investigation is conducted. Don't try to conduct an investigation on your own. It could facilitate continued abuse and subject your worship center to civil lawsuits alleging negligence. As tough as the consequences might be, the welfare of the victim and prevention of further abuse is paramount. Finally, give the victim and his or her family support. Along with a reporting agency official, meet with the child's parents and, with their presence and permission, the child.
I've been dealing with sexual offenders for 25 years, and I can no more identify one than an untrained person can. My best protection is that I know that. Couple a sexual molester's ability to deceive with the belief of so many people that nice, likable people wouldn't do anything like that, and you've created the perfect environment for abuse. As the author Gavin de Becker said, niceness is a decision, not a character trait. Don't decide someone couldn't be a child molester because he's too likable. Do the background checks. Report abuse when it's disclosed. Support victims.
Our religious community, with our traditions of hospitality, trust, and good faith, is being severely tested today. You want to make all who approach welcome and treat them with generosity and respect. But at the same time, we must ensure that a worship center is a safe haven for all its members, especially our children.
Establishing trust and a sense of faith in young people is essential to the future of your ministry. Children cannot defend themselves. If your place of worship won't do it, who will? Joy Melton offers other learning materials dedicated to reducing the risk of child abuse in the church. Her Safe Sanctuary series of 2 books and 1 video or DVD offers valuable in-depth guidelines. To order yours, call 1-800-972-0433 or go to the website listed on the screen, click on Product List and search Safe Sanctuaries. Church Mutual Insurance Company offers other materials to help prevent sexual molestation and misconduct, as well as an array of brochures, videos, posters, and checklists to help make your worship center and activities safer for every member of your congregation. All Church Mutual safety materials are free, simply for asking. Go to Church Mutual's website and click on Safety Resources for a complete listing. Or if you prefer, contact the Corporate Communications Department at Church Mutual.